And we're live.
I'm going to mute you. Can I mute you? Okay, I'm muting you. Testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me loud and clear? Great. I see everyone is signing on. Hello for those who just joined. Glad to see a few familiar names on here. Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to start in about 1 minute. Just wait for others to sign on. Be starting in 1 minute if you just joined. Thanks for joining everybody. I'm going to be starting very shortly. Just going to wait for a few others to join and we'll get started. hi to the new folks who have joined. Okay, we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining. Every firm is made up of different people. I like to call it a unique cast of characters. Each person brings strengths to the table, maybe a few weaknesses, but they often fall into roles the firm needs to really thrive. Those roles come with all kinds of names. The rainmakers who bring in new business, the client whisperers who know every detail about their clients, the perfectionists buried in their own work, and what I like to call the true unsung heroes is the back office people who are quietly keeping the firm from descending into chaos. The challenge is even the most talented team members don't always neatly fit into their roles. And so today we're going to take a closer look at roles, why they matter, and how they shape firm success, and probably laugh a little bit about how we've all worn the wrong hat at sometimes. So what are finders, minders, binders, and grinders, which may seem like some silly terms? For those that may not be familiar with these terms, it was originally coined by David Maister in his book called Managing the Professional Service Firm. I think this has got to be at least a decade or so old, but it's a collection of articles that Maister wrote over 10 years, and they're really timeless truths when it comes to delivering great client work, recruiting, retaining talent. He really teaches super smart people how to run their businesses. There are three archetypal roles. You'll notice there are four here, and I'll explain in a moment. But finders are the rainmakers. So finders, they've got a successful business or practice. They're always seeking out and generating new business. They're usually owners or leaders of practice groups or senior folks. The success of the firm equals their personal financial success. I mean, they're in sales. They spend the majority of their time on business development, and their job has nothing to do with project delivery. It's to find work for others to deliver on. So that's finders. The minders excel at managing a team. They're the ones overseeing administrative tasks. Their clients may belong to someone else, but they're responsible for the day-to-day contact. They're more focused on internal operations and keeping matters moving forward, and they really seek to please and frankly hold the place together. Grinders, these are the folks who churn out work. They're typically earlier in their careers. They may not often interact with clients, but instead stay behind the scenes. And then binders. So the binders was not in Maister's original book. It was not part of his framework, and it was added fairly recently to account for the evolving role in professional service firms, particularly in law and consulting. As firms grew, binders were introduced to describe roles focused on firm-wide organization, cohesion, culture. They handle responsibilities like internal communication, creating processes that support collaboration, retention. The term has become a lot more popular, I think, in the last decade or so, just reflecting the increased focus on culture, employee engagement, and just a modernized firm. So I want to just quickly poll everyone. So remember, I just want to, before we poll, you need all four roles, but they're not mutually exclusive. Okay, so anyone can find business, and likewise, anyone can do the heavy lifting like the grinders, but it's not an exact science, but it should be clear what type you are. So I'm going to launch a poll, and I would love everyone to answer the questions which are on the screen. So which role do you think your firm needs the most right now? If you could answer that. And then the second question is, which role do you think is the most challenging to develop in your firm? And if you want to hit the submit button, you'll see those results live. And we'll just give everybody a minute. I know I see some people responding in the chat, which is great. Thank you. Finders tends to be the one that a lot of people are looking for and a lot of people struggle with. I'll give everybody one more minute to respond. And it looks like finders are the ones that most firms need and the most challenging to develop. But we've got some folks looking for minders. Someone can't see the poll. I'm sorry. It's okay if you just want to respond in the chat. It's fine as well. So I'll just announce the quick results, which is which role do you think your firm needs the most right now? 67% says finders, 33% says, oh, or it's changing. So which role does your firm need right now? 50% finders, 50% minders. And which role is the most challenging to develop within your firm? 50% are finders, 25% minders, and 25% grinders. So again, it looks like finders and minders are the most challenging and the most needed. So we'll talk a little bit about that right now. Thank you for participating. I just want to quickly introduce myself. I hope you all know that by now I am not an HR professional. This is very much delves into an HR topic. Burbe is a marketing and PR agency. We specialize in working with professional service firms, but the people part affects everyone, no matter if you're an owner, an employee, or perhaps you've been on both sides. People are the fabric of a firm and they have a direct impact on the success of your firm. My name is Megan Braverman, and I'm very happy to be presenting again. So, as I mentioned, these roles are not mutually exclusive. We've seen it firsthand. I mean, someone who is excellent at managing a firm but doesn't have a sales bone in their body. Or what happens if someone's really passionate about the work deliverables, like a grinder, but very weak on building relationships, like a binder? So I just want to reframe it a little bit. I think a lot of people think of this as filling seats. Okay, I've got to fill the seat of a finder. I have to fill the seat of a binder. But these are not filling seats. I want you to take a look at this pro and cons list. I like to think of this as how can we fill the gaps and leverage the opportunities using this pro and con list for each role, or better phrase, the strengths and weaknesses of what you have. Okay, so I want to show you, obviously finders are really good they're the revenue generators, they're good at market positioning, but they might really suck at client handoff, or they really focus on acquisition versus client retention. So I'm not going to read everything here, but as you can see, one of the things that you want to do is not think of it as I'm going to fill the seat of a business development person or a finder, but instead lay out your people and indicate what archetypal role they do tend to fall in, but what are their pros and cons. This helps you kind of fill the gaps. And I want you, because the reason I'm showing this slide is so that you don't walk away trying to figure out how you land that key rainmaker. I just want you to look at people. Determining the roles you need right now is often kind of the hardest part, but it involves assessing your current business goals, your workload, the gaps in your capabilities, and I'm going to step you through a few of the ways so you can really figure out what do you need to do right now. So one way to determine what do I really need right now. Okay, you might know instinctively, I need more finders, I need more business. Okay, and that could be a larger question. Or I really need someone on the minder side. You've seen in the poll, a lot of people kind of are split between finders and minders. But I want you to first back up and define your goal. So if your goal is growth, that's your primary objective. Think entering new markets, increasing business, the quality of your client. You need more finders to drive business development efforts, right? If your focus is client retention, you want to strengthen your existing client relationships, you want to reduce churn or upsell, this is going to be the minders. The minders. If you want to streamline internal processes like improve client delivery, enhance the team's performance, look at expanding or empowering binders. If there is a high volume of work, or let's say an increase in complexity with client demands, consider adding grinders to maintain that quality of work and keep up with the workload. So again, this is one way to really assess what do I need right now, is what is your goal? The other thing to consider, and I hope everyone goes through this exercise, is to evaluate your pain points and team gaps. So you want to identify kind of where the team or the firm is struggling. So let's say you're missing out on business opportunities, you're struggling to reach the right prospects, then you need more finders. Maybe you feel like existing clients aren't receiving enough attention, or you're seeing a drop in client satisfaction, then you want minders. Are projects and timeline slipping, or the quality is inconsistent to a very high workload, grinders, right? And then, of course, if there's issues with employee engagement, or there's high turnover, or you're just seeing collaboration issues, operational inefficiencies that impact client service, or even morale, you're going to want to look at binders. So that's kind of the second piece. So goals, pain points, team gaps. The other thing that you want to consider, you have to look at current market conditions in your firm positioning. This is really important. So for example, if you're in a really highly competitive market, which a lot of us are, or you're navigating rapid change, you may need more finders to drive that brand awareness and pursue client acquisition more aggressively. If your firm is experiencing high client turnover, minders could help improve client loyalty and satisfaction. If there's challenging market conditions, or for example, just it's ineffective cost delivery is not working well for you. You're not maintaining profitability in the way. You might want to look at grinders. So that's the third piece that you can look at in terms of what do I need right now. And then the last piece is solicit feedback, and both from your team and for your clients. So first, from your team, you want to engage with your team to understand their workload, bottlenecks, and where they feel additional support is needed. Client feedback can also indicate where you're falling short. You might need more minders to to help your relationships and manage those relationships, or grinders for faster and higher quality work. So by aligning some of your immediate role needs with your business priorities and some of the gaps and resources you'll gain some more clarity on the most critical roles to address. So going through this process allows you to somewhat figure out what you need, right? But role mismatch is a prevalent issue. But we need to ask, is it a role mismatch, or is it an expectation mismatch? And so this is where you need to develop your people plan. And you develop your people plan with finders, minders, grinders, and binders in mind. So the first is you've got to define clear roles and expectations. I mean, a people plan really outlines what is expected of each role and help employees understand their very specific responsibilities in supporting growth, client relationships, or just operational stability. It also prevents a lot of overlap and gaps in service, like particularly between business development and client care. Training programs, I mean, this is going to enhance talent development and recruitment. I think that training programs should align with each role so that people can build the skills that they need to thrive and survive. And a career path becomes clearer and can reduce turnover. The other item, and just in terms of your people plan, is it builds a collaborative environment. I think you want to make sure that all your roles are working seamlessly together and fostering this culture of collaboration rather than having your business development people here, your client people here, et cetera. And this really allows you to support consistent client experience and high quality from initial contact to the long-term relationship, and really just aligning with your firm strategy. Each team member truly contributes to the firm's success, because if you have too many finders and no grinders, that's an issue. I mean, it's great when you have work coming through the door, but if you actually can't get the work done, then you're setting yourself up to fail. So regardless of which role someone falls into, if your firm requires marketing and business development participation, setting some clear expectations, depending on the level and experience, it needs to be communicated. So you should ask yourself, what does participation in marketing look like for someone who is a grinder or a minder? For law firms, let's say, if they're required to bill, 40 plus hours a week, is it really realistic for them to be attending networking events or authoring the firm blog? Probably not. You need to set those expectations based on realistic standards and build upon it so that your people can grow. So I want to take a look at how these roles impact marketing and business development. So let's look at finders. The goal of finders is to generate leads and attract new clients. So finders are central to marketing and BD, since their main role is getting new clients, getting new business, but they benefit from certain marketing. Like, for example, they want the firm to be positioned as a leader. They want to build brand visibility. they want to be able to communicate the value proposition of the firm effectively. So you can do this through really targeted messaging, through thought leadership, networking, events, client entertainment. And there's very specific ways to measure that. You measure it through how many leads are coming through the door. How often are we landing clients? What is our conversion rate and what's our revenue growth? Okay, so it's very specific for finders in terms of what's going to help them succeed. The other aspect for minders, so minders, their goal is maintaining and growing client relationships. So they need marketing strategies that are going to reinforce trust and loyalty. So some of the marketing tactics you want to consider for minders is client-centric content, right? So content that is geared toward the client, that's pulling at the heartstrings or the pain points for clients. CRM tools and automation are another great way, right? You can very easily automate through your CRM various emails so that you can kind of drip in front of clients. And feedback loops. I mean, we talked about soliciting feedback. That's really important. But the way that you measure Minders' contribution to marketing and business development is obviously different than Finders. One is client retention rates. How often are you keeping, like client churn, satisfaction scores, and cross-selling success? How much are you able to cross-sell? Grinders, so their goal is great work. They typically don't engage in direct marketing or business development, but their work is often the backbone of case studies, success stories, and client testimonials. So some of the marketing tactics that's going to be beneficial to them and the firm is showcasing expertise, educational content. Here's what we did with a particular client, and collaboration with marketing. I mean, one of the things we do at Burbay is like we've got our client team, and then we've got the quote unquote non-client team. And the non-client team, they're focused on marketing Burbay. They need to talk with the client team about all the great successes, and that collaboration is really key. And so the measurement for Grinders is case studies, success metrics like project quality, innovative solutions. These are the KPIs that Grinders can be measured by in terms of the success of the firm. And then lastly, binders. So binders are critical for creating an environment where marketing and BD can flourish. They support an internal culture that aligns with the firm's brand and values. And so some marketing tactics for them can be internal branding and communication. A lot of times you'll see internal email newsletters that are going out to the team to showcase some of the things that are going on, employee engagement initiatives, and then client experience programs. And some of the ways that you're going to, some of the KPIs for binders is employee satisfaction scores, and alignment of internal culture with branding goals. So those are some of the ways that you're going to measure the impact of binders. So everyone has a role to fill, right? And some may stay really neatly in that role for the duration of their career. Some may evolve. Obviously, a grinder's contribution is to produce a large volume of work, or maybe as a law firm, bill substantial hours. And in turn, they're allowing the finders and binders to do what they do best, right? Foster relationships, generate business. So understanding these roles should result in a much more harmonious and productive firm. So I want to talk a little bit about the collaboration of roles. I mean, there's a few additional dimensions that I'd like to consider to truly understand how these roles can be the key to success. So as I mentioned, there's this big interdependence between the roles. And we all know that collaboration enhances marketing and BD efforts. So just think about how you can build cross-functional teams to align with this finders, minders, binders, grinders framework. So like, for example, the grinder is going to craft a data-driven proposal that seals the deal for a finder, right? A finder who's bringing in the business is going to trust that the minders, who are the client relationship people, they're going to solidify and grow that relationship. So minders have a lot of ongoing collaboration with finders to ensure that there's a steady pipeline and that they keep clients really happy. So needless to say, and to underscore what I said earlier, you can't have one role without the other. They truly depend on each other. I don't want you also to overlook the technology component of this, right? So how can you leverage technology to fill some of the gaps or to help propel some of these roles? So Just to take some marketing examples, artificial intelligence driven insights for finders to help identify potential clients, advanced CRM and automation tools so that minders can enhance client relationships, tools like a content management system for grinders to be able to share their expertise effectively. Another example is like internal communication platforms so that the binders have the ability to really align culture and goals. I also want you to think about how these roles aid in a crisis. I think we all learned from COVID and from prior recessions and just other, kind of things that we've dealt with, that you need to think about how these people contribute during unforeseen challenges. Finders obviously are really critical during downturns because they need to get really innovative with how they generate leads. In let's say even during COVID, minders who are the client people, they need to maintain the client's trust, and that's through transparent communication. So I just also want you to think about how these roles come into play in a crisis, because obviously crisis times can be a little bit different than our regularly tuned schedule. And then just really the career trajectory, evolving roles and career progression, not everyone's going to want to stay a finder or a grinder or whatever it might be. So a grinder who's doing the work might have a lot of interest in transitioning to a finder, right? And so with a little additional training and experience, maybe some shadowing, that's possible. Binders can be a natural fit for those with leadership or operational expertise. So there's a lot of evolution with these roles. And again, I don't want you to think them neatly fitting into filling these seats. I want you to think about as sort of the bigger picture of what each role can bring. So yes, you can jump roles, right, with the right training and support, but I see time and time again, and this is one of the reasons I put on this webinar, is that a lot of people expect a grinder to sort of inherently have a finder mentality, and that's going to lead to frustration on both sides. It's either significantly above their experience level, or it doesn't even align with their personality type and interests. I mean, I see a lot of firms pushing people to go to networking events, and they don't even know how to enter a room with that many people. So you got to sit down with folks individually and determine what role suits them, best suits them now, while determining ways that they can contribute to the firm's marketing endeavors without negatively impacting their work. Obviously investing in training, right? So role specific training and mentorship programs accelerates the learning process. Creating these training and mentorship programs for individuals are really key. Let people practice or shadow. I mean, I don't see a lot of shadowing like I used to. I'm not sure why, but I think 10, 20 years ago, what happened was if a minder or grinder wanted to be a finder, they were attending networking functions with finders. They were sitting in on the client meetings with the minders. They were watching that role in action and learning from them. You also want to, study market trends, right? So in this competitive landscape, you want to figure out sort of how things are changing and how your roles can best support that. Hybrid roles do exist. If you find that a person is a unicorn and you can fill two roles, do whatever you can to make them happy. I mean, unicorns are pretty rare. So, and then employees should see that switching roles can broaden your skill set, help you see the business from multiple perspectives, and just make you a more versatile, valuable team member. I got a chat that says, cost too much to let people grow and develop these days. And I am going to vehemently disagree with that. I think when people think about training and mentorship programs, they think about this as this like big dollar amount that, gosh, how can I, this program is, 20,000 a month, or this workshop is, they see it as a big dollar amount. But what about shadowing? Shadowing doesn't cost anything, right? It might cost time and resources, but there's a lot of different ways that you can upskill people. Again, you'll see a lot of the larger firms having pretty robust training programs. But maybe it's even talking about the mentee mentality, right? Everybody wants a mentor, but do those mentees have the mentee mentality? The mentor isn't going to come down from the pearly gates and say, I'm here to, shadow you through your whole career and bring you to the next level and the next level, next level. That's not how it works, right? So maybe you can help people with how do you get the mentee mentality. So I think there's a lot of ways to do this cost effectively. It takes a little bit more thought into what I talked about before, which is where are the gaps, right? And where do people want to be? So if for the 50% who are really looking for those finders, do you have anybody that can be the finder in your group? And if yes, what are the things that they need to learn to get them to that place? If you don't, and it comes down to like a recruiting aspect, then that's obviously a separate story. Is like, how do you attract the right talent and the right people? And finding those finders can be really, really challenging. And I'd be happy to, whoever had that question, to talk more offline about kind of the ways that you can develop cost-effective training programs. So as we wrap up today's conversation, I just want you to, I hope you just walk away with a little bit of a clear view of the roles that make up of every firm. But here's the big takeaway, right? Which is no matter what hat you wear, success comes down to one thing. It's how well we align our talent and our strategy and focus to drive growth. So, marketing and BD are what makes that alignment possible. They bring in opportunities, they strengthen client relationships, they ensure the firm doesn't just survive, but it thrives. So it's about finding the right business, minding the relationships we've built, and grinding to deliver exceptional results, all while recognizing that every single role matters. And at the end of the day, growth isn't a one-person job, it's a team effort. And really kind of identifying what are the opportunities you feel like you're missing and seizing on those. We've seen a lot of success in that. So thank you so much for joining me. I know this was a quick webinar. I hope you got a little pearls of wisdom. And here's to building a smarter, stronger, more successful firm. I am here to answer any questions offline, and a recording will be available shortly if you have other team members that you'd like to listen. Thank you so much.